everyone, welcome to another episode of Retro Recreation. Today we are building out the Shinra Reactor. Of course, this is another Final Fantasy VII background. For those familiar with the particular background, this is where you're introduced to the final stretch to the main reactor controls, which you, of course, as Avalanche, plan to destroy it by placing explosives on it and detonating it to stop Shinra's usage of Mako to save the planet. When I first reached the stage of this background, as you start the game, it takes you about 10-15 minutes to reach a stage where you glimpse the Shinra reactor, the insides of the Shinra reactor, which is really cool. It's like walking into this behemoth of steel and industry and seeing what's inside, which of course is metal pipes, steelwork. When you reach your ground level, it's not exactly ground level. There is a large depth to it. As you look over, you just see a deep abyss where there is some Mako there, where Mako is not just up to the level, but deep into the earth, like oil. Unfortunately, unlike the remake, the original, we did not use the elevator. We had to manually go down or jump across these pipes to get down, which I've always wondered, where did that elevator lead to? I've always liked the scene with the haze and this industrialized area with the pipes going down into the earth and connecting to the Mako below. In terms of design, I of course love this kind of steampunk 80s, 90s vibe. It always catches my eye on how unique it is, because in modern times, of course, we're more technologically sci-fi in terms of nanomachines, and I think Final Fantasy VII really embodied that design. A lot of mechanical machinery that is powered by this steam-based energy source, something similar to steam Mako. In the original game, there was an interesting dynamic where the heroes, you didn't know if you could have called yourself a hero, to be honest. As you played the game, you started off as a terrorist, an eco-terrorist, trying to stop the planet from dying. But as a new player, you don't know if your cause is actually real. Is it actually a genuine cause that you're fighting for? And that leaves an interesting dilemma within your mind as you keep on playing, because as you plant an explosive into the reactor, it blows it up, and there is a lot of destruction where, of course, lives are claimed, and it's chaotic, causes chaos, damage, and probably a lot of casualties. But your characters celebrate and continues down the line of believing your cause is righteous and that they're doing it to achieve a greater goal, which is such an interesting dilemma to the player himself, because you don't know if you're actually on the right side of things. You kind of question the morality of what they've done, and not knowing the truth of the matter is something that I don't know any game at that time that actually shifts that viewpoint so radically, where you question the journey itself. And in a nutshell, that is the reason why I just love Final Fantasy VII. The topics it has is, to me, incredibly intricate and thought-provoking, but at the same time was so very cool and interesting and exciting. The remake, however, kind of changed that dynamic a bit, where when Cloud, during the bombing run, you see cutscenes that the Shinra president knew exactly what was going on, and it was all a ruse, where the explosive didn't really do much. It was actually the president himself utilizing his machines to cause far more damage and chaos to create that big explosion at the end that took so many lives. And it kind of pushes the responsibility off the heroes of the weight of what they've done, because as you play the remake and you walk through the streets, of course you see, well, you don't really see bodies, but you see people hurt. You believe there should be some dead people, but of course in the back of your mind you're thinking that it's kind of okay because you did not really cause this damage, instead of believing you were the sole cause of this damage and seeing that consequence as the player and having second thoughts about the journey you're on. Is it really worth it? Is it something that you believe in? And the remake, when it shows you that you're not truly at fault, it just takes away that depth, that consequence of your actions. And unfortunately, to me, it felt that the journey was downplayed a bit. Yeah, of course, a lot of those small little downplays to me. But, well, of course, with the bad, there comes good, where I get to see Jesse and Biggs and Wedge with the remake being fleshed out so much more. And I truly fell in love with those characters again. They were such interesting characters, and the remake really did justice to them. The original, you saw these characters, and of course the Midgar scenes were like an hour into gameplay, so you tend to just go through these characters pretty fast. But with remake being it felt like a journey into a very complex place with complex characters, and it was, to me, very fulfilling. I got to see these characters and see where these characters came from and their development, and it was always interesting. It wasn't terrible or boring. They always kept these characters interesting. Unfortunately, of course, I do have a lot of problems with Rebirth. To me, Final Fantasy VII Remake was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I've played it over 700 hours in total. That meant I've played it several times over. I've platinumed it, and I've enjoyed every bit of it. It was such a enjoyable game. But downsides to the game, as it's not a complete remake. There is some changes to it, and those changes include time and dimension. As you can tell, time and dimension is a very tricky concept, and it, to me, it just screws up the story quite a bit. If you don't know how to utilize this concept very well, your story becomes a mishmash of non-consequence, which Final Fantasy VII is a story about consequences. It goes so much into what drives these characters. You get to see every single character's story. There is this personality with these characters, and when you introduce time and dimensions, you tend to lose so much that made these characters. Like, for example, no foreshadowing a death scene. Is this person truly dead? Is this person alive? And that, unfortunately, is a very big negative that I have with the Final Fantasy Remake series, where it just goes into a whole dimensional blur of who knows what's going on. And the last game is being promised to clear up a lot of these questions, and I don't know if this last game could actually solve all these issues. This last game need to be a work of magnificent art to be able to come even close to making this story cohesive. I think personally, if they kept the story as it is and improved on it by adding more characters and more situations and fleshing out the journey itself, it would have played so much better into what could be a epic remake. But with all this stuff all about, it's really quite depressing. When I played Remake, there were characters, there were so many lives within this Midgar area that had so many stories. It felt like a lived entity, felt alive. But playing Rebirth, I saw these characters being reused, and that broke me from my immersion from the fantasy itself. Because I didn't feel like I'm playing a fantasy and going on a quest. I felt like elements are being reused and rehashed again. I'm not seeing new characters. I felt like I just stepped across the road and it's the same exact people, the same communities, and it just breaks the immersion where I'm seeing Madam M and the bandits that you met in Wall Market. It's like they're following you. And to me, it doesn't make any sense. To me, I want a new world. I love these characters, yes, but to be just reused and reused and reused while these people are oddly enough following you wherever you go, yet have a reason for going, it doesn't really make sense. I want to go on a new journey with new people and a new destiny. I don't mind bringing back one or two characters from the past, and I don't mind reintroducing those characters, but you need to go back to the same place that you met these characters, unless these characters are journeying through the world like you, which I doubt. Not all of them anyway. One or two, yes, but more, it doesn't make sense for me. And that's one of my bigger issues with Rebirth, where it just needs a lot. Well, to me, it needs work. I still don't know what score I would give Rebirth, because I have many complaints, and as I continue with this series, as I build these backgrounds, I'll probably go into a lot of these complaints because they tend to impact each other. As a discussion, I would like to give my own opinion on what I think about the remake to the original, and where I think it incredibly improves, and where it doesn't improve, and give you guys my point of view. There was one thing that I really found a bit off-putting with the remake to the original. Getting to the reactor was pretty, I would say, not too time consuming. You get in pretty quickly and get out pretty quickly. But within the remake, it gives you this long battle sequence, and I wish they cut more of the battles and placing more traps and obstacles to overcome, because I find that they tend to place so much battles and battles and battles and battles to get to a small section of the story. Where in the original game, there is some battles, but you do get to these sections pretty quickly, and you get more story out of it, to me. Instead of being trapped in a small reactor, well, okay, a big reactor, but being trapped by hundreds of enemies. That takes you hours to even come close to achieving your goal, which the original just took 10 minutes. So to me, it was a bit more enemies than I'd like, and there were some places that I really thought they went overboard with the enemies. As I kept on playing, I just sat back and was just exhausted. Just so many unnecessary enemies to get through this section. Every platform had monsters, for God's sake, and it's just annoying. I don't mind interesting dynamics within these scenes. Who knows, this entire area has no monsters, but as soon as you see another area, it has a ton of monsters, and you just have to keep on fighting your way through and break through, which would be much more interesting than one monster fight every 5 minutes, well, every minute or so, or every 30 seconds, to be honest, which would make the situation a little more diverse and keep the gameplay a bit more interesting, which I think is something that Final Fantasy VII needs a little bit more, because as a remake, they want to put so much combat within the game, which I love, don't get me wrong, but it becomes a grind at one point in time. I believe there needs to be some function or something that makes the game feel more alive, where your journey is chaotic instead of formulaic, where you go, you fight, you get item, you come back, you fight, you deliver item. There should be a bit more of who knows, puzzles, I guess, but I don't mind hindrances. Well, that's just me rambling about the things I think about Final Fantasy Rebirth and Remake and comparing it to the original, which I find very hard to knock a lot of things that the original have done. Kind of getting back to the image itself that I'm building, I wanted to change the scene just a tad bit, where you could easily see the Mako, that green tinge, and I'm thinking, looking at the scene and seeing the pipes go down and seeing the steam coming out and that color and that light, I'm guessing it's probably because of the lighting and the distribution, or more or less caustics within the liquid itself. So what I did for my scene, I made my liquid green with green tinge and caustics that illuminates the scene. And since there's steam and vapors and whatnot, I wanted a bit more smokiness to my scene. So I added a bit more volumetrics. And as you go up, there is red lights and yellow lights. I kind of wanted to give the scene a bit more contrast. So I decided to just add a bit of that red element within the smog, within the air itself. And since there's so much green and yellows, I wanted to just make the scene pop more. So I tried to isolate the red on top to just give it that glow or that hue, and that glow or that hue to add a bit more complexity towards the scene and make it a bit more interesting. Of course, I used coronarender for these shots. I'm not too familiar with corona volumetrics too much, so I tried and tested a bit through the scene, trying to figure out the look I'm going for and just playing with the settings. to see what it can give me, any feedback. And yeah, I think I'm pretty happy with how it came out. I hope you guys enjoy, and please, of course, like, share, subscribe. As I can only say, I hope to keep on growing this channel, and I hope to be able to do all of the Final Fantasy VII backgrounds. Someone who can take my scenes and place it into the game itself. That would be incredible. And of course, it's not just Final Fantasy VII. I am working on a bit of a Final Fantasy IX and 8. So I'm excited to showcase that. But it's in the works right now, so it will be in the future. But of course, I hope you guys enjoy the content. So bye. Thank you.